Now, during all of this ecstasy dealing and running around, how old were you and how much money were you making at this time?
Okay, so I started the stock market when I was 16, borrowed £50 off my nan, which was about 70, $80 back then, and doubled it. And that was a big deal to me. When I got to America after business studies at uni, I arrived only with my student credit cards, didn't have a work visa, but I fully intended to conquer the world. I'm just out of uni. I've watched that movie, Wall Street, Greed is Good. And that was my motto. So nothing was going to stop me. Work visa wasn't even a consideration. I had a printing set ready, and my aunt, who was mentoring me, let's say back then, we were ready to print a visa into my passport if necessary. So first couple of years, it was commission only, and I'm new to telesales, and I'm running out of money on my student credit cards, down to living off cheese on toast and bananas, worried I'm gonna have to come home. But 5 years in, I'm the top guy in the office, grossing $500,000 a year, got my own secretary, cold callers. But I end up with enough money to retire, and that's what I did. And I stuck that into technology shares, and they shot up during the dot-com bubble, and that's how I became a millionaire. So the sad thing is, I didn't even need to be getting involved in the drugs, but it was all ego-driven. I've written about Escobar, and his brother said to him when he was worth billions, why don't we just buy our own island, kick back? We won't get arrested. We won't get killed by rivals. And Escobar's like, I'm running this multi-billion-dollar business. I decide who the president of Colombia is. I've got tens of thousands of people working for me, and you want me to kick back on some island, in a deck chair, sipping a cocktail. What my point being is, addiction to the lifestyle is more powerful than addiction to the drugs and addiction to the fast cash. I was a shy, anxious student in this country before I went out there. I almost got beat to death by some drunks. And it was years later in therapy, I learned to go deep inside myself and address some of the root causes of what I'd done. And I was taking ecstasy and speed because I had social anxiety. People saw this wild and crazy party animal, but once I got off the drugs, I was this reserved person again. So you asked about money, but it was more fueled by the mental addiction to being the man, living in $1 million house on the side of a mountain, swimming pool, jacuzzi. My wife, yeah, she'd done her university stuff, but she was also doing lesbian internet porn. When you're a testosterone guy in your 20s, this is what you aspire to. But I see the error of my ways now, and I mostly go into schools and speak to kids and dissuade them from doing the crazy stuff I did.
Wow, so you were already making millions of dollars before you even entered this drug world.
Yes, I bought shares in one company, a stock. It was called Pacific Satellite Nusantara, an Indonesian telecom company. And I bought them around $5 a share in the late 1990s. And during the peak of the dot-com bubble, that one alone hit 50. And I had multiple positions like that in satellite and tech and telecoms.
Wow.
I'd wake up, turn my computer on, and I'd be up some days like 100 grand. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And this was
Yeah.
all during the dot-com bubble, like you said?
During the dot-com bubble, yeah.
So once you got into dealing ecstasy and making lots more money dealing ecstasy, you said you were getting it from Holland. Is that correct?
Okay, so in the beginning, I was just throwing house parties and showing off and buying drugs and giving it away for free. And that was when I was still working as a stockbroker. My best friend from childhood, Wildman, came over, and his place where he stayed just became a permanent party house. And it's through him I met a lot of the characters that became my business partners later on from various mafias. And we realized we could only get 100 pills from the local dealers. And I'm twigging on now. I'm thinking, all right, do I want to keep working in the stock market these long hours, or should I apply my business studies knowledge to running an ecstasy importation business. In the beginning, I had to go to LA, found out the local dealers were getting them out of LA. First time I went out there, buy 1,000 pills, whatever it was. I took Wildman. I took two crews. We had two cars, and we're parked on the street in some area of Hollywood, and we're waiting for this guy. He's not even home. So I'm thinking, is this a setup? The police watching his house? This guy, am I going to go in with the money and he's going to rob me? I went in the house on my own when we saw him arrive, and he was like a surfer gangster dude. And he had these characters with him, like out of Point Break, that movie.
Yeah.
So I go in there, and I'm shitting myself, basically. I've never done anything at this level before. This is quite heavy for me at this point in my life. I tell him I've got the money, where's the pills? He goes, all right, I'll go and get them. I'm thinking he's going to go back in a room, come out with a gun, just take my money off me. It could have been done as easy as that. But he comes out with the biggest bag of pills I've ever seen in my life. And I say, do you mind if I try one first? Because I knew the taste of ecstasy. He says, do you want a drink? I said, no, I'm just going to chew it because I know what a good ecstasy tastes like. Chewed it. It tasted good. We did the deal. I'm just dancing in my car all the way back to Arizona. And those pills through Wildman's apartment in Tempe, Arizona, all those pills went within a weekend. Then I've realized, okay, ecstasy is a scarce commodity in Arizona. It's going for $25, $30 in the clubs right now. This is definitely something I could make money of and have fun. But because of that decision, I lost absolutely everything. So I built up an organization from there. Over 100 people arrested with me, but I had about over 200 working for me at the peak of it. And the LA guys could get up to 5,000 pills at a time. And it just wasn't cutting it anymore because demand was so high. I've got this vertically integrated operation now whereby I'm throwing raves. I've got a rave clothing music store, got all this money laundering stuff going on. And so I couldn't leave the country because I was an illegal alien. I got married 3 times, but they never lasted long enough for me to get my green card. So I had to send people out to Holland with testing kits from a website called Dance Safe. So a good ecstasy pill, usually like a beige press, should be 125 milligrams of MDMA and clay. Mm-hmm. And when you test it in this kit, it changes this thing to like a purple blue color. So, I was also aware that if I'm bringing bulk pills back to the States, if there's some kind of toxic substance in them, people could potentially die.